My name is Sasha Barab. I am a professor at Arizona State where I've studied how people learn and tried to put different models that were less about putting content into people and more about seeing the product of learning as what people do with what you're teaching and the ideas that you're using as opposed to them simply consuming. I'm also the CEO of Life Lab Studios. We're a personal growth and life wellness company. And what I'm going to talk to you all about today is how we can take care of those students who are struggling, who maybe have a lot of adverse childhood experiences and are not able to get through the year, or maybe getting more suspensions than others, or just students who are struggling with, how do I show up today? And we want to meet their needs, but given a lot of the cuts at schools, that can be hard. So the problem, again, that I'm looking at, approximately 30% of youth struggle with wellness issues. Do people know what adverse childhood experiences are? Sort of, yeah, I got one, I hope. Couple, okay, so adverse childhood experiences, they could be a divorce, they could be abuse in your home, they could be someone drinking in your home that you're influenced by. And if you have one or two, it's considered a little bit problematic. If you have over three, you're at risk for ending up in the juvenile justice system. So a lot in schools right now across America, the estimate is that up to 20% are experiencing over 4 adverse childhood experiences. So when you have that kind of context at home and those kinds of influences, it's really hard to show up. These manifest in suspensions. Over 3 million students a year right now are suspended in US schools. Over half have multiple. And once you have more than one, you start to get into a rut where people perceive you in that way, and you start to perceive yourself in that way, and your family certainly perceives you in that way. 750,000 become justice involved. They could end up being very minor, and they get diverted quickly. In diversion, we try not to leave the quote unquote stain of the justice system, but have you complete some things and then you can move back out, or you can end up deeper in probation and detention. And when you look at different data, it depends at the feds. Right now, the feds have a very different story, but it could be anywhere from 10% to 25% of public schools say that we are not equipped to deal with these kids if they are challenging not being able to sit in their seat, take notes, and get a good grade. So our goal is to serve as a come alongside advising system where we come up, you recommend youth, we work them through a program. We give you growth plans and updates about what's happening, and we use AI to make sure that every moment is stacking up about a larger journey of progress. And I'll walk you through what that looks like here. I think our use of AI is pretty innovative and right on the edge of what AI is allowing us to do right now. So we have 3 components to our program. We have an anytime, anywhere platform. We have one both for youth and for adults. We have a come alongside staffing service. And we have AI insights that are kind of built throughout the program. And again, I'll give you a feel of what that looks like. We have an app for learner. And the idea of the app for learner that we really wanted was it's available anywhere. I don't have to go into a desk. I don't have to type into a computer. I don't have to go to a library and log in. I can do it on my phone. So we started with mobile first in how we built that. The idea for the app for the coaches is we wanted to have AI insights all around that let you give feedback on particular moments, but also connect those moments to the larger growth plan. Because it's very different when I'm giving you feedback about a particular event, what we'll call a single session intervention. Like let's just say you're struggling with boundaries as you're working on your family situation. If I give you feedback on that event that's not connected to the larger plan, it tends to be more isolated and not connected to the larger story we're trying to help you rebuild. So I'll walk you through what that looks like. And in the last minute, I might open up just kind of a little bit of AI and play with some things for you all to understand the power of context when you're using AI. We started off, we were trying to power, we do a lot of work in juvenile detention centers, we do a lot of work in recovery centers, and our goal initially was to power probation officers, diversion officers, teachers, guidance counselors to use the platform because they had the already standing relationship with the kid. As it turned out, some of the feedback would take too long to give the youth. They weren't trauma-informed, strength-based. They didn't really know how to conduct a motivational interview. So even though they had a tighter relationship with the youth, our staff could get on Zoom and in 30 minutes build a better connection than someone who had known that youth for a while. So we ended up taking a lot of that back and training growth specialists that come alongside. The advantage of that is it's no extra burden on staff. The disadvantage is that you don't have a pre-existing relationship in trying to work with them. And the last part is that we use AI for insights at the individual level, working with the person at the group level. So when you have a number of youth who are all working on a particular area, we can give you insights around substance. And at the organization level, we end up having thousands and thousands of stories, and I'll show you what that looks like, of the youth in your building on different areas where they're struggling. So we can use AI to give you back reports that talk about what's happening, what are some of the antecedents that led to the decisions that they're making from those stories, and then what are some things you can do as a school to better support those who are struggling in your area. We also do come alongside service for like finding careers. The modules in there are more like, how do you build a resume? How do you do an interview? How do you identify what your strengths are? How do you assemble your market value assets? And in those also, we can give the school back insights to what are the kinds of careers and jobs or even colleges that your youth are seeking at the end of it. But our bread and butter and where we really focus is on mental health struggles and people who are having difficulty showing up for life, let alone to get your school. So the way our program works, we start off with a call. You give us a list of names. So most schools might get like 30 accounts that we're going to take care of. And they would give us the names, usually tier 3, sometimes tier 2 students who maybe haven't been suspended more than once, or maybe aren't even suspended yet, but they want us to go through the program so that they don't end up in that situation. During that, we do a 30-minute call. The goal is we already have a little bit of insight. Are they struggling with substances? Are they struggling with relationships? Are they struggling with transitions? What is it that's going on? And in that call, our goal is to make full eye contact, connect with that youth, let them know, hey, we're here calling up because you have some things going on in the school and we don't want you to get into further trouble. And our goal is to help build up the skills and address any needs you have, but really prepare you to be in a different place. We then take that intake and we build a growth plan. We upload it into the AI. The AI goes through all the modules in our system because we have an API with Claude. It looks at the interview, and what it does is it builds aligned motive. We give back the youth, and if we're allowed to, we share it with a parent for signature and the school counselor. Here's what that youth is going to be working on, and here's why. So even if we have like, a youth who's got a little bit of a transgressive relationship to the system, and many of the youths who are struggling in the classroom right now or are causing things to get them suspended already don't trust the system very well, meaning adults in the school, and we're a representative of that. So our goal in that AI is to go into their words and map them and connect them to the kinds of things that they're going to do so they understand that this isn't just compliance, this is going after to help me reach goals that I care about. And the AI is absolutely amazing at mapping the modules that we have in the conversation. And I'll show you what that looks like in 1 second. From there, the next step is we assign them a particular certificate. So we have libraries, like a library related to substance use, library related to family struggles, pro-social skills, depression, mental health, wellness. And they have modules that they work on in those libraries. So you have modules which are in certificates, which are in libraries. Make sense? And the whole instance for the school is a private instance. It's got their logo and their branding. So when they're going through, they actually can earn certificates from that school in the areas that we're helping them grow in mental health. Usually most kids will do 1 or 2. Each one takes about 40 minutes. So you have a 30-minute interview at the front. You have a couple 40-minute modules. And at the end, you get a transition plan where the AI goes through all the contacts that we've had with the youth, the intake, and all the stories in the modules, and builds a transition plan and an e-portfolio. So it includes all the stories that they've done in there. That's sent over as a PDF. And the goal in that transition plan, in that meeting at the very end, is to make sure that we're helping the youth rewrite their narrative of self. You're no longer where you were when you started this. Not look at what you've learned. Look at all these experiences, because in each module they're having to upload how they're applying I statements to their life, how they're building boundaries in their home. So we have all these moments, jobs to be done, that they've successfully navigated, and we've given them feedback that can start to build a new sense of who they are now as a competent, successful student. Does that make sense, that process? And then we apply that process even to our professional development. When we do our professional development, you're going through the same thing. At the end, we share with your supervisor. So let me show you kind of how that looks a little bit deeper. So on the intake, we can do it if we're local, or if someone's local, they can do it on their phone and record it. Or we can do it over Zoom and record it, or Teams, or whatever it is that you want us to use. And then we upload it into the AI, and then that AI will build the growth plan for them. Does that make sense at a high level? Okay, cool. Seen a lot of nods. Here's an example of there's been a lot of research. Most youth, when they're arrested in the US, one of the things they're assessed on are their criminogenic needs. And the idea is that if we don't meet those needs, we are not serving public safety, because we're putting the youth back out on the street with the same challenges that they came to us when they were arrested. And as most people know, sanctions aren't enough to change behavior. So what we do is we would assign you one or two of these areas, and then we'd work through with you the modules and give you feedback and build that new narrative of self. High level? Okay. So what I want to do is kind of show you what the platform looks like on the inside. But before I do, just to give you an idea, here's a module. On the module, it starts with why. One of the most underused tools in education is intention. We fail to recruit the intention of the user in what they're learning. And as a result, it's just a slog to get them to even memorize things, let alone learn and want to use what they're learning in school. We don't leverage that power. We think of learning as an intervention that we put into people, but it's an invitation to connect them with these ideas and how they'll make sense of their life. And that's what we have to do, even as we're walking through on mental health struggles, let alone career or learning content. The next step is they're connecting with examples of other peer in their building, just using emoji. We can use comments, even staff can use comments that are giving them a chance to go, oh, here's what a trigger is, and here's how other people have leveraged the tools I'm just about to learn to manage the things that trigger them and get them in trouble. So we haven't even gotten to the content. All we're trying to do is set them up to understand the value of it. And peer influence is one of the most useful tools we can get to change adolescent behavior. So we want to do it in a safe and secure way. We only let them do emoji. It's only stories that have been submitted and the other youth wanted to share, and that we didn't lock as having overly sensitive data. And it's only youth in your building or in your classroom if you're rolling it out in the homeroom. Makes sense? You have small groups and instances. The last part is apply, grow. The next part is grow. And here they're watching videos, doing multiple choice, all the stuff in your curriculum, drag and drop, short answer. But we can also do AI simulations. So if they're working on bullying, they can actually do a little AI moment where there's a bully and they can figure out how to react, and the AI plays the role of the bully. Or they can be a bystander who wants to step up. So we have lots of little AI simulations in addition to typical multiple choice short answer. At the end, they get a certificate that they can print out. Depending on, they can show it to the principal, they can show it to themselves, they can show it to their parents, to the judge, in a lot of places where we deal with youth who are arrested in diversion. So they have different stories that they're submitting all along the way, right? So every module, the important moment is applying it to their life and sharing back how they did that. I'm giving you a lot in 10 minutes. This is an addiction module where they're kind of learning about what is addiction and what does it mean to use non-recreationally. This is a future job one that they're learning through. And what happens is we're giving them feedback all along the way in these trauma-informed, strength-based ways, holding them accountable for change. It doesn't help if you're heard if we don't help you to build the responsive skill, right? So last week, I think we reviewed of our team over 2,000 stories that came in that week. And of those, over 300 were returned to resubmit. So we have to hold accountable at a high level. I won't go into a lot about personal stories right now because I just want to move for time, but they're personal, they're relational, and they're contextual. And generative AI, ability to read story and make predictions about where they're struggling or what will help them, is one of the new unlocked powers of generative AI. Ironically, it can make the feedback more personal, more contextual than without it as a human being. because it understands the tools that we care about. It can read all the other stories that the youth submitted. It can even look at their plan. It can position that moment, not where I'm just giving you feedback on I statements or boundaries, but in relation to the larger goal. And that's where AI is really powerful, because a human can't do that if they're doing this at scale, or we'd have to charge you, $5,000 per kid or something like that. But we got to do it very cheap in schools. So just a couple other thoughts. It allows for to bring together person, content, and context. What AI can do is take your situation and your story, take the idea that we want to get across, and give you feedback, or give the champion assistance to give you feedback that connects in a strength-based way, your story. We've kind of never had that ability to personalize at scale with fidelity. It also can give scaled accountability in the sense that it can be like, well, that's a really good moment, but my goal is to get you all the way over here, so I have to ask a little bit more of you. And that's sometimes hard when we're talking about growth across like 60 days. It's really hard to know, what do I do here versus here versus here? But AI can actually map that out and say, we're getting close to the end of our time with this youth. We do a low-risk one where you can roll it out in homeroom. You just send them an invite code. People log in and they work on things like gun safety, vaping, addiction to drugs, staying in control of your decisions, building positive peer relationships. And then we have the more intense one where we go through lots of modules and we do an intake and an outtake. Okay, so just to bring it together. Lastly, AI at the individual level, I'm going to just show you a couple things just to kind of leave you with excitement, and then I'll wrap up here. First of all, so like when I click on Doom, okay. So here's an example. Every youth we have in here, you can see everything they've done. Wrap it up. Cool. You can see all what they've done. You can see their different stories, the progress they've moved. If you click on AI Insights, assuming that all still good, it'll go through all the youth that they've done, their plan, and it will actually generate what are they struggling with, what are their goals, what are their strengths, what are their challenges, and what are suggestions for personal connection. So you get this deep insight as an advisor in your school with one click before you meet with them, which you could never have access to. It can also build these plans where it goes through everything they've done, and it suggests where they're doing well and where they're still struggling, and it can attach it to a portfolio of activities. So I'll end with this slide just with my information. If you're interested and you think this is something that your school, and the last part is we can give you these reports that like summarize everything in your school on the use of the different ones. So I'll end right here. So on here, if you go to journeydo.com, you can see a lot about the information of what we do, of different segments that we work in. And my personal email is over there. Sasha, thanks for coming and being a part of the very last element of the show.